I'd like to say Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, does join us right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Right, we've got 3 minutes because we've got to go to a break at about 56, so we're going to have to make this short and sharp. Unless you're willing to stay just after 9 o'clock, which would be really helpful. Would you be able to do that, Gillian?
I will for you, Julia.
Oh, you're very, very kind.
But I have got cabinet. I have got cabinet,
but Rishi,
so I can't stay very long.
I'll text Rishi. He won't mind. It's good. We've only 3 minutes isn't time enough to do an interview. Let's talk about teachers going on strike. National Education Union. They say their pay cut in real terms. They need to go on strike to get the pay they need. What's wrong with that?
Well, clearly, we have all partaken in the independent pay review body, which did come back with 5% for experienced teachers and 8.9% for new teachers. But what is not taken into account, and probably not taken into account in those figures as well, is that is on the pay bands. And many of our public sectors also have progression within the bands. So if you look at teachers, almost every newly qualified teacher and about 40% of experienced teachers will actually get a pay rise of up to 15.9% when you take progression in as well. So it's always taken at this very simplistic level. It is actually more complex than that. And then, of course, you've got people getting promoted and the options to get promoted as well.
Yeah, but not everyone gets promoted.
It is something we take seriously.
But you said
but they get progression for time.
OK, but you said this when you were extremely disappointed for parents and children that they're seeing these strikes and the impact on both. But you're basically saying there it's not a justified strike. They are getting a pay rise, and therefore it's not. Do you think the strike is not justified, therefore?
Well, I don't think strikes are justified, and particularly it seems unreasonable, particularly when you say how much our children have been through during the pandemic. You know, our teachers are doing a brilliant job helping them catch up. They've delivered 3 million catch-up tutoring and classes, but, you know, we do know that there's still some children that need more support to catch up. We've obviously got exam cohorts, which we will prioritise as well as vulnerable children and children of key workers. We'll ask heads to prioritise them. But we are hoping that heads can keep as many schools open as possible because, as you said, the two teachers' head unions have not voted to go on strike. One of the main teaching unions has not voted to go on strike, and the teaching assistant unions has not voted to go on strike. So it's just one union that's narrowly got over the threshold.
Keeping schools open is all very well, and that will help people being able to get parents being able to go to work. But what we want is our kids to actually get a proper full days of lessons. We know that, I mean, during the first lockdown in 2020, 4 out of 10 kids have barely any contact with teachers. We know that GCSE pupils right now, like my daughter, year 7 is the only year they've not had disruption. We can't carry on like this.
No, it's very important for children that they're in school and being educated. You know, that's what we're all here for.
You didn't care about that during 2020 and 2021.
Well, we learned a lot during the pandemic. I think it's fair to say at the very beginning of the pandemic, you know, not all schools had the technology in place, not all children had.
Ms. Keegan, I'm so sorry. You came to us so late. We are going to carry this on after an update on the news. I will come straight back to you, talk about this, gender self-ID and Metropolitan Police as well. This is Talk Breakfast. Good morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. We're going to leave openers aside, going straight back to our guest, the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, who is very kindly waiting for us on College Green. We only had a couple of minutes with her before we had to go to a break. Gillian Keegan, thank you so much for staying on. I know we've only got a couple more minutes with you, but in terms of where we go, just finally to finish up a conversation about the teaching union going on strike. How do we end this? Because if you're not prepared to pay any more in the government and the teachers are going to carry on going on strike, are we going to see disruption ongoing, or is there going to be more talks around the table?
Well, I am meeting with the unions again tomorrow. That was already in place, and my officials will also be meeting them on Friday. I think there's quite a lengthy meeting to go through all of the, to share as much information as possible prior to the next submissions for the pay review bodies, which are due on the 27th of January for next year's pay. But if you also look, we're also talking about workload, we're looking at flexibilities and all those other things, actually, which are the biggest reason that some teachers leave the profession, or some teachers don't feel supported in the profession. So I'm always, I've always got my door open, but clearly what we need to do is tackle inflation, and we've said that we're going to halve inflation this year. That is the best place to focus, and make sure that we look at workload and other factors that can improve teachers' lives, who are doing an amazing job.
Do you believe the National Education Union,
do you
believe the National Education leaders, not the members, the leaders, do you believe they care about children, about pupils, and about education?
Well, I mean, they would claim that they do, but I think
do you think they do?
To me, it seems unreasonable to have. I think it's unreasonable to have strike action. We're still having discussions. Clearly, they only just got over the threshold. Less than half of the teachers from that union actually voted for strike action. So 53% turnout, but I think 90% of those voted for strike action. So it does seem to be unreasonable, particularly given all that our children have endured, really, during the pandemic.
Right. There are a couple more topics I want to get to. The Scottish gender self-ID law was struck down yesterday by the UK government because of its impact on UK-wide equalities legislation. You're on record as saying you believe that 16-year-olds are old enough to make a decision to change gender. Why are they not old enough to drink alcohol or smoke, but they are old enough to change their gender?
What you're referring to is an interview I did earlier, where what I said was we were going to publish guidance on this, and then we were going to have a long consultation, because it's a tricky area and we need to make sure we get all of the views: parents, children, teachers, other stakeholders. So that's what I said. Then I was asked, whether I thought I could make decisions at 16. I said yes. I'd actually left school and started work full-time at 16. So I was making decisions at 16. I was even making decisions on behalf of a business of mine. But of course, not all 16-year-olds are the same. And that's why it is tricky. We do need to consult, and we do need to make sure that we support children during what's quite a difficult teenage years, and also to support them, as they gain into adulthood. But, what I haven't said is, and then I said, we will consult on this, and that's exactly what we will do.
But do you believe, as Nicola Sturgeon clearly does, that the men who are with no medical intervention, no treatment whatsoever, who believe that they are living in the wrong body, have gender dysphoria, or claim to have in some cases, that men should be allowed into female and women-only spaces like changing rooms, toilets, girls' schools, women's prisons, women's refuges? Do you think they should?
No, and this is one of the difficult bits, right? How do you protect the rights of women, and particularly vulnerable women who need these safe spaces? How do you protect those at the same time as they're competing rights to some degree, which is why it is tricky and why we have to consult on it.
All right, just finally, very briefly, the Met Police are investigating more than 1,000 officers and staff for sexual offences and domestic abuse after Met Police officer David Carrick pleaded guilty to 49 charges, including rape. Do you feel safe on London streets?
I do actually feel very safe on London streets, but I do think that, this appalling case, which is a truly, truly shocking case, obviously, the Met Police do have to respond to this, and do have to make sure that they have the right procedures in place, because these officers, not just this officer, but others potentially as well, fall seriously below the standard. And it is important, it's vital that we can trust our police. So it's really important that the Met take action to make sure that we can trust our police.
Now, I know you've got a hot foot into a cabinet meeting at Downing Street. Thank you, Gillian Keegan, Education Secretary. Off you go. Thank you very much indeed for staying on for us.